What's going on, guys? I'm Yeshaya, this is FireFace Films, and today we're talking about my XH2s mini cinema rig. Before we do, make sure you drop a like, get subscribed, and click that bell to get notified when we post. So, we're going to start kind of unconventionally. We're going to start at the center of the build and then move from front to back. So let's do it. So obviously, at the center of the build, we have the XH2s here, and let me say, it is a fantastic camera. Ever since we've moved on from the X-T4, this has been a great B and surprisingly a good A cam in comparison to the World Classic Pocket 4K here. We have the XH2s in the center, and then for media, I've been rocking with the 1 terabyte red branded Angelfast CF Express Type B cards, and I also have a OWC CF Express Type B card as well. And I only had that one in 512 gig because that was the first one I got for this. And let me tell you, you're going to need, honestly, like minimum 1 terabyte if you're gonna be shooting ProRes on this camera, because this thing eats up data like nobody's business. So that's definitely a consideration to have. And then that's the heart of the build. So let's move from the front. So up front, we've got the Tilta Mirage clamp-on Mattbox, which I talked about in a previous video. You can check out right here. And this has been a good Mattbox. My main gripe with it being that it only has a single top flag, which is not currently attached right now, but you only get one top flag, no side flags, and only one stage for the 5.65 by 4 Mattbox like filter. So that's not exactly ideal, but for me, in my use case, it's not that big a deal because I don't find myself using those filters anyway. I'm usually using the Swift and Nisi Swift True Color ND. They have a really like fluctuating, shifty name, but that's the idea. The Nisi True Color Swift system. That's the VND that I use in place of the Mirage VND, which is dubious at best. And then moving back, lens selection wise, now this is where things get interesting. Normally, I'm rocking the 16-55 f2.8, a lens which is very great, but there are some shocking plot twists with that lens, which we will definitely talk about in a future video, so make sure you're subscribed for that when it happens. But right now, I currently have on, let's get the Mattbox out of here, I currently have on my Nikkor 35mm f1.4. So as of late, like I said, I'm usually using the 16-55 for most things, as autofocus with this camera and that lens combination is fantastic. Outside of user error and putting like the wrong autofocus settings, because there's really some very interesting, like if you look at the screen, it says AF, off, or area. They will do wildly different things, so you really have to like calibrate that and make sure it's correct. But once you actually dial in those settings, the autofocus is superb. It's really good, although it still has room to improve, and I'm pretty sure they did improve that on the GFX 100 too, but that camera is an entirely different beast. So right now, 16-55 for autofocus, and these, I'm just gonna take this right back off this tripod, but for narrative, which is what we're currently working on, there's a few projects in the pipeline that we're working on where I wanted to get a different feeling because that lens is extremely razor sharp. Combine the 6K from this camera with that lens and its glass composition, you're gonna get some extremely razor sharp imagery. So we wanted to dial that back with these more classic lenses here. And all my lenses are outfitted with these clamp-on rings for the Mirage system, and honestly it's really great. They clamp right on, boom, and then one-handed operation here, boom, they're locked in. These lenses go nowhere. So great synchronization. No, that's not the word. I'm looking for synergy. Synergy's the word. Great synergy. And then right next to the lens, we're going to ditch the Mattbox again, we've got the SmallRig follow focus. Now, I don't remember the exact model name because there's like a million different follow focuses from every brand, but essentially this is your single rail mounted like follow focus, and I gotta say, this has been a great on-camera follow focus. Of the 3 that I've had so far, of varying degrees of build quality, this is by far the best to me. Because I know there are definitely like two, like the follow focuses that mount on both rails. And sure, those are definitely gonna be built more sturdily, but honestly, I have to say, those are a little bit overkill for my case, and they also don't have the speed of just going, boop, gone. Like, it's as easy as mount, lock. I think I just loosened the other one. I certainly did. Blunder on my part. But yeah, it's easy, it's very easy. The dampening and turning action is really good. I like the way it feels, and I'm extremely happy with this follow focus setup. Around the camera, we have the Tilta XH2s cage, which I have to say, the XH2s cage selection is a bit of a mixed bag for me, because most of the cages really lack mounting points along the area where the LCD top screen is. And obviously, you want to see that information, but there had to have been a way to engineer this to give us some mounting like area over here, because it just feels like a massive dead zone when you're trying to have mounting options. You basically only get the left 2/3 to mount top options. And then my biggest gripe with this cage, and really just Tilta products in general, is that they have non-standard screw hole placement. So if you want to use it in conjunction with any of these camera accessories from any other brand, you're most of the time out of luck because the screw holes don't line up. It's a little frustrating, so Tilta, you can do better. Just give us standard screw hole placement. I know a lot of people have probably felt that pain, but standard screw hole placement would be fantastic. Otherwise, this cage is pretty handy dandy. I don't have it right now, but on this red Rosette here on the left side, I actually usually have a left-handed grip so that I can hold the camera on the actual camera grip side with the left-handed grip in conjunction with autofocus lenses to get really steady handheld shots. And it's been my go-to setup for anything handheld. So we're gonna move towards the back now. And if you look here, I've got a NiceyRig cheese plate holding on to the Tilta. Let's get this battery out of here for now. Battery plate here. Now, this is an NPF battery plate with the USB-C cable feeding into the USB-C port on the camera here. What I would really enjoy, though, is a dummy battery setup to go from this battery plate into the battery slot here, because I heard that the XH2s at first did not have the battery hole, so you could like put in dummy batteries, and I've seen that. But these newer models of it do have the like removable battery slots so you can put in dummy batteries. But there aren't that many, if any. The only companies I've seen that make DC barrel like dummy batteries is pretty much Indie Pro Tools, and everyone else that's making dummy batteries makes D-tap batteries, which makes D-tap ended cables, which don't work with this setup. We're getting about 5 to 6 to 7 hours of usable usable time on set. So on most shoot days, I only have to replace the battery like once, maybe. So I gotta say, that's unbeatable. And it's much less expensive than V-mount batteries. So you gotta factor that in, because a few NPFs will cost significantly less than even a few V-mount batteries, and don't even get me started on V-mount chargers. They are crazy expensive. So NPF batteries for your mirrorless camera setups, absolutely good deal. And then for monitoring, I just have been rocking, I stole my monitor from our main camera here. I'm still using the Atomos Shinobi. This is it's a fine monitor for this setup. I do have to say my one shortcoming for this, and it's just a product of the product's time, I guess, which is that the Shinobi does not support F-Log2 as like an input. So this monitor has a few different inputs for different cameras, and F-Log2 is not supported. So I basically had to bring in the F-Log2 LUT and into the SD card slot here, which granted, it's an option. We got there and it was great, but ideally, in most cases, we want integrated solutions. But if we can't have integrated solutions, we make our own solutions. So that's all fine and dandy. That was my only real gripe with using this monitor with this camera, and it served me well. It's a nice 5-inch, 1000 nit monitor, so decent for viewing outside, but my next big move, honestly, is probably gonna be to move when I can is a small HD monitor, because those actually do have inputs for the latest Fujifilm cameras, and you can use EL Zone for exposure, which is way more efficient and I guess accurate for exposing your image. You're gonna need it because this camera has no good exposure tools except for histogram, which histogram is not that great of an exposure tool, especially if you need to be dialing in specific exposures. Like, you need to know that this portion of my face is one stop more exposed than this portion of my face. EL Zone helps you dial that in extremely specifically as each zone moves and stops. So that's why we want to move to the small HD monitor over the Shinobi. But for the time being, the Shinobi gets the job done. As another note, for mounting the monitor to the camera, I also have this SmallRig HawkLock system. It works pretty well to keep the system lightweight, although I do have one sort of issue with it, and it's just that the actual way that this system works with the swivel and tilt, it will absolutely come loose over time, so you have to have an Allen key on you so you can keep tightening that screw so it doesn't flop all over the place. It's a disaster, really annoying, especially when you're in motion and say you're handheld and you're in motion, that thing starts to come loose. All of a sudden your monitor comes down, whacks your lens, and then you've got a problem. It just ruined the take, and now you're worried if your lens might be damaged. So that is a little bit frustrating, but as long as you have a Allen key on standby to keep this secure and locked in, it's a really solid monitor mount. What's missing from this setup? Really only two things. One is wireless transmission. At the current time, I'm researching into either Hollyland or Axoon, and possibly even Vaxis wireless systems to see which one's gonna work the best. Although the best wireless transmission system, which according to some is the DJI wireless transmission system, unfortunately, apparently just doesn't work. This was tested by Cine Dailies. You can check out that channel. He had a video mentioning it, where it just refused to cooperate with the XH2s, which, granted, that's way out of my budget for this setup, but it's a consideration if you are looking to wireless transmission setups for this camera. And then the only other thing that's missing from this setup really is just wireless follow focus. So granted, most of the time I am camera operating and I have no problem pulling focus from the camera. But soon enough, we will be having people who do AC, like first AC for this camera setup and also this other camera setup. So wireless follow focus will absolutely be essential. And as on that front, there's a lot of good options to choose from, so we have no idea which way we're going. The first kind of instinct would be to say the Tilta Nucleus Nano 2, but who knows? Like I said, there's a lot of good options, and the market's really saturated with stuff right now, so we'll see which one ends up here. And on that note, that's gonna do it for us today. So if you like what you saw here, make sure you drop a like, get subscribed, and of course, click that bell to get notified when we post. If you have any, tell me about your rig in the comment section below. Even if it's not an XH2s rig, I want to know about it because I want to have insight on how to possibly make this rig even better. And I want to compare to other people's rigs. I want to know what it's all about. So talk to me about it in the comments below. And we will see you in the next video.